What if I told you that the way you move through the world, the quiet way you hold yourself, the pauses you take before speaking, the care you give to things others rush past, what if none of that is accidental? What if it reveals something deeper, something vibrating beneath the surface of your life, something that cannot be measured by the noise you make or the space you occupy, but only by the quality of presence you bring to each moment? There are people who walk among us who seem to carry a different frequency, not louder, not brighter in the way that demands attention, but steadier, more aligned, as if they are tuned to a station most others cannot hear. And perhaps you are one of them. Perhaps you have felt it, this quiet hum inside you, this sense that you are living from a place that does not need to announce itself, does not need to prove itself, but simply is. This is not about superiority. It is not about being better or more evolved or spiritually advanced in some competitive sense. It is about recognizing that there are ways of being that are not celebrated in the marketplace of modern life, ways of existing that do not translate well into social media posts or elevator pitches, but that carry a depth and a resonance that changes the rooms you enter, even if no one can name why. Carl Jung spoke often about the inner world, about the vast landscape that exists beneath the surface of our daily masks. He called the outer face we show the world the persona, and he knew that for some people, the persona is thin, almost translucent, because so much of their energy is devoted to what lies beneath. These are the people who cannot help but live from the inside out. They do not perform their lives. They inhabit them. And this inhabiting, this rootedness in the inner world, creates a particular kind of presence. It creates what we might call a high inner vibration. But what does that mean, really? Not in the abstract, not in the language of spirituality that floats above lived experience, but in the actual texture of a life. It means that when you enter a room, you do not scan it for validation. You do not measure yourself against the energy of others. You do not dim yourself or inflate yourself depending on who is watching. You simply arrive, fully, quietly, and that arrival is felt. People may not know why they feel steadied by you, or why they find themselves speaking more honestly in your presence, or why the conversation shifts from gossip to something more real when you are near. But they feel it, because your vibration is not dependent on their response. It does not rise and fall with approval. It remains steady, and steadiness, in a world of constant fluctuation, is magnetic. You might notice this in the way you listen, not with the half attention most people offer, the kind of listening that is really just waiting for your turn to speak, but with full presence. When someone is talking to you, you are there. You are not drafting your reply. You are not comparing their story to yours. You are not judging or fixing or dismissing. You are simply with them. And this kind of listening is rare. So rare that when people encounter it, they often do not know what to do with it. They might talk more than they intended. They might reveal things they did not plan to say, because your presence creates a space where truth can emerge. This is not a technique. It is not something you learned in a workshop. It is a natural byproduct of living from a deeper place, a place where you are not constantly defending yourself or managing your image. And so you have attention to spare, attention to give. And attention, real attention, is one of the most precious things one human can offer another. Jung understood that the inner world is not a void. It is not emptiness or absence. It is a living, breathing landscape filled with symbols and dreams and voices and shadows and light. For those who spend time there, who do not fear their own depths, the inner world becomes a source of nourishment. It becomes a place to return to, not to escape life, but to digest it, to make sense of it, to integrate what happens on the surface with what is true underneath. And this process of integration, this ongoing conversation between inner and outer, is what Jung called individuation. It is the work of becoming who you actually are, not who you were told to be, not who would be easiest, not who would fit in, but who you are when all the borrowed voices fall away. And this work, this quiet, unglamorous, often invisible work changes your vibration. It makes you more real, more solid, not in the sense of being rigid, but in the sense of being rooted. You might notice this in your relationship with solitude. For many people, being alone is something to avoid, something that signals failure or loneliness or social inadequacy. But for you, solitude is not a punishment. It is not something you endure. It is something you need, not all the time, not as an escape from the world, but as a return to yourself, as a way to hear your own voice again, as a way to let the noise settle. You might find that after a day of interactions, even good ones, you feel depleted. Not because the people were bad or the conversations were shallow, though sometimes they are, but because engaging with the outer world requires a kind of energy that drains your reserves. And solitude is how you refill, is how you come back to center, how you remember what matters, how you reconnect with that inner hum, that vibration that is yours and yours alone. This need for solitude is often misunderstood. People might call you distant. They might say you are hard to reach. They might accuse you of being cold or uninterested or too much in your own head. And perhaps, at times, you have believed them. Perhaps you have tried to be more available, more outgoing, more like the people who seem to thrive on constant contact. But it never quite works, does it? Because it is not authentic. Because you're trying to live according to someone else's rhythm, someone else's needs. And in doing so, you lose touch with your own. And when you lose touch with your own rhythm, your vibration drops. You become scattered, anxious, resentful, not because there is something wrong with you, but because you are living out of alignment, because you're trying to be an extrovert in an introvert's body, trying to live on the surface when your nature pulls you toward depth. Jung spoke about this. He made the distinction between introversion and extroversion not as personality types in the superficial sense, but as orientations of energy. The extrovert's energy flows outward, toward people and events and external stimulation. The introvert's energy flows inward, toward reflection and meaning and internal processing. Neither is better. Neither is healthier. They are simply different ways of being in the world. But our culture, especially in recent decades, has favored the extrovert style. It has celebrated the loud, the quick, the network, the always on. And so those who are introverted, those whose energy moves inward, have often been made to feel that something is wrong with them, that they need to fix themselves, that they need to be more social, more visible, more energetic. But what if the opposite is true? What if your inward orientation is not a defect, but a gift? What if your need for solitude is not a weakness, but a sign of depth? What if your high inner vibration depends on your willingness to honor your own nature, rather than contort yourself to fit a model that was never meant for you? You might notice this in the way you relate to authenticity. For some people, authenticity is a buzzword, something to aspire to in theory, but not necessarily practice. But for you, it is non-negotiable. You cannot pretend for long. You cannot smile through conversations that feel false. You cannot nod along to ideas you do not believe. Not because you are judgmental or rigid, but because inauthenticity creates a dissonance inside you that is almost physical. It makes you feel sick, tired, hollow. And so you have learned, perhaps through painful trial and error, that you must be honest. Not brutally honest, not recklessly honest, but quietly, steadily honest. You must say what you mean. You must mean what you say. You must show up as yourself, even when it would be easier to wear a mask. Because wearing a mask, for you, is not easier. It is exhausting. It fractures you. It lowers your vibration. This commitment to authenticity often comes at a cost. It might mean you have fewer friends. It might mean you do not fit neatly into social groups. It might mean you are misunderstood, or that people find you intimidating, or that you spend more time alone than you would like. But it also means that the relationships you do have are real. They are built on truth, not convenience. They are built on mutual respect, not performance. And these relationships, though they may be few, nourish you in a way that 100 shallow connections never could, because they allow you to be seen, not the persona, not the role, but the actual person, the one who doubts and dreams and struggles and hopes, the one who is still becoming. And being seen, truly seen, is one of the deepest human needs. It is also one of the rarest human experiences. Jung believed that most people live their entire lives without ever being truly seen, even by themselves. They live behind a persona, behind the roles they play, parent, professional, partner, friend, and they forget that there is someone underneath, someone more complex, someone less tidy, someone who does not fit the script. But you have not forgotten. You cannot forget, because your inner world is too loud, too insistent, too alive to be ignored. And so you have been forced, perhaps against your will, to pay attention, to look inward, to ask the hard questions. Who am I really? What do I believe? What do I want? What am I afraid of? What am I avoiding? And these questions, uncomfortable as they are, have led you deeper. They have led you toward individuation, toward becoming yourself. And this process, this ongoing, never-finished process, is what gives your life its vibration, its resonance, its weight. You might notice this in the way you experience time. While others rush, you pause. While others multitask, you focus. While others fill every moment with noise and activity, you allow space. Not because you are slow or lazy or unambitious, but because you understand, perhaps intuitively, that depth requires time, that insight does not come from speed, that meaning is found in the margins, in the quiet moments between events, in the space where you can actually feel what you feel and think what you think. You might find that you need time to process experiences, that you cannot immediately articulate how you feel about something, that you need to sit with it, to turn it over in your mind, to let it settle before you know what it means. And this need for processing time is often misread by others as indecisiveness or overthinking. But it is neither. It is integration. It is the work of bringing the outer event into conversation with the inner world. It is how you make experience meaningful. This relationship with time also affects how you move through your days. You might find that you cannot pack your schedule the way others do, that you need buffer time between activities, that back-to-back meetings or social events leave you not just tired but disoriented, as if you have lost touch with yourself. Because in a sense you have. Because you have not had the time to return inward, to check in, to recalibrate. And without that return, you begin to feel like you are living someone else's life. You begin to feel like you're performing rather than being. And performance, no matter how skilled, always lowers your vibration. Because it is not real. It is not rooted. It is a surface phenomenon, and you're not a surface person. You might notice this in the way you respond to beauty. Not the glossy, commercial version of beauty, but the real thing. The way light falls through leaves. The way a piece of music seems to speak directly to something inside you that has no words. The way a poem captures a feeling you thought was yours alone. You're moved by these things, not sentimentally, not performatively, but deeply, as if beauty is a language you understand, a frequency you can tune into, a reminder that there is more to life than the transactional, the functional, the merely practical. And this sensitivity to beauty is not weakness. It is not naivety. It is evidence of a soul that is awake, a soul that has not been numbed by cynicism or busyness or the constant assault of information, a soul that still knows how to feel. And feeling, real feeling, is the foundation of a high inner vibration, because you cannot vibrate at a high frequency if you're shut down, if you're defended, if you're living from the neck up, cut off from the body, cut off from the heart, cut off from the deeper currents of life. Jung spoke often about the shadow, about the parts of ourselves we deny or repress or project onto others. And one of the habits that reveals a high inner vibration is the willingness to face your own shadow, to admit that you are not all light, to acknowledge the anger, the jealousy, the pettiness, the fear, not to wallow in it, not to identify with it, but to see it, to own it, to bring it into consciousness so that it does not run your life from the basement. This is hard work. It is humbling work. It is work that never ends. Because the shadow is not something you defeat once and for all. It is something you learn to live with, to integrate, to make room for. And this integration is what makes you whole. Not perfect, not pure, but whole. And wholeness has a vibration that is unmistakable. It is the vibration of someone who is not at war with themselves. Someone who has made peace with their contradictions. Someone who can hold complexity without collapsing into simplicity. You might notice this in the way you handle conflict, not by avoiding it, though you might prefer to, not by dominating, though you could, but by staying present, by not retaliating, by not needing to win. You might find that in the middle of an argument, you can feel the other person's pain, even as they are attacking you. You might find that you can hold space for their anger without taking it personally, without making it mean something about your worth. This does not mean you are a doormat. It does not mean you accept abuse. It means you have enough inner stability that you do not need to defend yourself against every perceived slight. You can let some things go. You can choose your battles. You can respond rather than react. And this capacity for response, rather than reaction, is a sign of inner maturity. It is a sign that you're not ruled by your wounds, that you have done the work to heal, or at least to understand, the places where you're tender. And this work, this ongoing work of self-awareness and self-compassion, raises your vibration. It makes you less volatile, less predictable in a reactive sense, more grounded, more trustworthy. You might notice this in the way you relate to success. Not that you do not want it, not that you are not ambitious, but that your definition of success is different. It is not about status or wealth or recognition, though those things might come. It is about alignment, about living in a way that feels true, about doing work that matters to you, not just work that impresses others, about building a life that reflects your values, not someone else's script. And this redefinition of success often puts you at odds with the dominant culture. It might mean you turn down opportunities that others would kill for. It might mean you earn less money. It might mean you're not climbing the ladder everyone else is climbing. And people might judge you for this. They might think you are wasting your potential. They might think you are afraid of success. But you know better. You know that there is no success in living a life that is not yours. You know that external achievements mean nothing if they are built on a foundation of self-betrayal. And so you choose differently. You choose slower. You choose deeper. You choose in alignment with that inner vibration, that quiet knowing that tells you what is right for you, even when it makes no sense to anyone else. Jung called this process individuation, and he was clear that it is not a path of comfort. It is not a path of fitting in. It is a path of becoming separate, distinct, uniquely yourself. And this path requires courage. It requires the willingness to stand alone, to be misunderstood, to disappoint people, to let go of relationships and roles and identities that no longer serve you. This is not easy. It is often painful, but it is also deeply freeing, because on the other side of that pain is a kind of integrity that cannot be taken from you. A kind of self-possession that does not depend on external validation. A kind of inner vibration that is stable, consistent, and true. You might notice this in the way you experience other people, not as threats or competitors or sources of validation, but as fellow travelers, as other souls struggling with their own shadows, their own wounds, their own questions. You might find that you do not need to compare yourself to them, that you do not need to be better than them or prove yourself to them, that you can simply be with them in whatever way feels authentic. And this lack of comparison, this lack of competition is rare, because most people are so busy defending their ego, so busy managing their image, that they cannot afford to be generous. They cannot afford to celebrate someone else's success. They cannot afford to be vulnerable. But you can. Not because you are a saint, not because you have transcended ego, but because you have done enough inner work that your ego is not running the show. It is present. It has needs, but it is not in the driver's seat. And this shift, this subtle but profound shift, changes everything. It changes how you show up. It changes how people experience you. It changes your vibration. You might notice this in the way you hold space for others. Not by giving advice, not by fixing, not by trying to make them feel better, but by simply being present, by letting them feel what they feel, by not rushing them through their process, by trusting that they have their own answers, their own timing, their own path. And this kind of presence is healing, not because you're doing anything, but because you're being something. You're being a mirror, a witness, a safe place. And in a world that is constantly telling people to hurry up, to get over it, to move on, this kind of presence is revolutionary. It says, you are allowed to take your time. You are allowed to feel. You are allowed to not be okay. And this permission, this unspoken permission, is what allows people to breathe in your presence, to soften, to be real. Jung believed that the unconscious is not just a repository of repressed material, but a source of wisdom, a source of guidance, a source of creativity and insight that the conscious mind cannot access on its own. And one of the habits that reveals a high inner vibration is the willingness to listen to the unconscious, to pay attention to dreams, to notice synchronicities, to trust intuition, not in a superstitious way, not in a way that bypasses reason, but in a way that honors the fact that you are more than your rational mind, that there are ways of knowing that do not come from logic, that there are messages that arrive in symbols and feelings and sudden knowings. And when you learn to listen to these messages, when you learn to trust this deeper intelligence, your life begins to unfold in ways that feel less forced, less effortful, more aligned, as if you were being guided, not by some external force, but by your own deepest self. You might notice this in the way you make decisions, not by making pro and con lists, though sometimes you do, not by asking everyone's opinion, though sometimes that helps, but by checking in with your body, by noticing what feels expansive and what feels contracting, by paying attention to the subtle signals that tell you yes or no before your mind has figured it out. And this body-based knowing, this somatic intelligence, is often more accurate than any rational analysis, because the body does not lie. It does not have an agenda. It simply responds to what is true. And when you learn to trust this response, when you learn to let your body guide you, you make choices that are more aligned, choices that raise your vibration rather than lower it, choices that move you toward wholeness rather than fragmentation. You might notice this in the way you practice gratitude, not as a technique, not as something you do because you're supposed to, but as a natural response to life, as a recognition that even in the midst of struggle, there is beauty, there is kindness, there is grace. You might find that you notice small things, the way a stranger smiled at you, the way the sky looked at dusk, the way your coffee tasted this morning. And these small noticings, these moments of appreciation, are not trivial. They are evidence of a mind that is awake, a heart that is open, a soul that has not been hardened by bitterness or cynicism or despair. And this openness, this willingness to receive the good, even when life is hard, is a powerful practice. It shifts your vibration. It shifts your focus. It shifts what you attract and what you create, not in a magical thinking way, but in a very real, very practical way. Because what you focus on expands. And when you focus on what is beautiful, what is kind, what is good, you begin to see more of it. You begin to create more of it. You begin to become it. You might notice this in the way you move through transitions, not with ease, necessarily, not without fear or doubt or grief, but with a kind of trust, a trust that even when you cannot see the path, there's a path, that even when everything is falling apart, something new is being born, that even when you feel lost, you are exactly where you need to be. This trust is not blind. It is not naive. It is earned. It is built through years of navigating uncertainty and discovering, again and again, that you are more resilient than you thought, that you can survive what you thought would destroy you, that endings, however painful, make space for beginnings. And this trust, this deep, embodied trust, is the foundation of a high inner vibration, because it allows you to relax, to soften, to stop fighting life and start flowing with it. Jung spoke about the process of individuation as a spiral, not a straight line. You do not conquer your issues once and for all. You circle back to them again and again, each time from a slightly different angle, each time with a little more wisdom, a little more compassion, a little more integration. And this circling back is not failure. It is not regression. It is the natural rhythm of growth. It is how depth is built. And when you understand this, when you stop expecting yourself to be finished, to be fixed, to be perfect, you relax in the process. You stop judging yourself so harshly. You stop comparing your middle to someone else's highlight reel. You accept that you are a work in progress, that you will always be a work in progress. And this acceptance, this radical acceptance of your own unfinishedness, is deeply liberating. It frees you from the tyranny of perfection. It allows you to be human. And being human, fully human, with all the messiness and beauty and contradiction that entails, is the highest vibration there is. You might notice this in the way you respond to criticism, not by collapsing, not by defending, but by considering, by asking yourself, is there truth in this? Is there something here I need to see? And if there is, you take it in. You learn from it. You adjust. And if there is not, if the criticism is more about the other person's projection than about you, you let it go. You do not carry it. You do not make it mean something about your worth. You simply acknowledge it and move on. And this capacity to discern, to take in what is useful and release what is not, is a sign of inner strength. It is a sign that you're not so fragile that you cannot hear feedback, and not so insecure that you need to defend against every perceived attack. You are stable enough to be flexible, grounded enough to be open. And this combination of stability and openness is rare. It is the mark of someone who has done the inner work, someone who knows who they are, and who is still willing to grow. You might notice this in the way you treat your body, not as an object to be controlled or punished or perfected, but as a partner, as a source of wisdom, as the vehicle through which you experience life. You might find that you listen to it, that you rest when you're tired, that you eat when you're hungry, that you move in ways that feel good, not just in ways that burn calories. And this respectful relationship with your body is not indulgent. It is not lazy. It is intelligent, because your body is always giving you information. It is always telling you what it needs. And when you learn to listen, when you learn to honor those needs, you feel better. You have more energy. You are more present. Your vibration rises because you are not at war with yourself. You are not forcing. You are not overriding. You are in partnership. And partnership, whether with your body or with life itself, is always more sustainable than domination. You might notice this in the way you handle your own darkness. The days when you feel heavy. The days when nothing makes sense. The days when you doubt everything, including yourself. You do not try to positive think your way out of it. You do not shame yourself for feeling low. You simply allow it. You let yourself be where you are. You trust that this, too, is part of the process. That the darkness is not the enemy. That it has something to teach you. That it is, in its own way, a kind of grace. Because it slows you down. It makes you go deeper. It strips away the superficial and forces you to confront what is real. And when you stop resisting the darkness, when you stop trying to escape it, something shifts. Not immediately, not magically, but gradually. The darkness becomes less frightening. It becomes more familiar. It becomes a place you can visit without losing yourself. And this ability to be with your own darkness, to not abandon yourself when things get hard, is one of the most important habits you can cultivate, because it means you are whole. It means you're not only willing to embrace the light, but also the shadow. And wholeness, as Jung knew, is the goal. Not perfection, not purity, but wholeness. You might notice this in the way you engage with the world, not by trying to fix it, not by raging against it, but by being a presence within it, by showing up as yourself, by doing your work, whatever that work is, with integrity and care, by treating people with kindness, even when they do not deserve it, by choosing love, even when fear would be easier. And this is not passivity. This is not resignation. This is active engagement. This is choosing, moment by moment, to be the kind of person you want to see in the world, to embody the values you wish were more common, to live as if your life matters, because it does. Not because you are special, not because you are chosen, but because every life matters. Every choice matters. Every moment of presence, every act of kindness, every decision to be real rather than perform, it all matters. It all contributes to the collective vibration. It all makes a difference, even if you never see the results. Jung believed that the work of individuation is not just personal, it is also collective. That when you do your inner work, when you face your shadow, when you become more whole, you are not just helping yourself, you are helping everyone, because you are no longer projecting your unresolved issues onto others. You are no longer acting out your wounds. You are no longer adding to the collective, unconscious pool of pain and fear and rage. Instead, you are adding consciousness. You are adding presence. You are adding light. And this contribution, invisible as it is perhaps the most important work any of us can do. Because the world does not need more noise. It does not need more performance. It does not need more people trying to prove themselves or dominate others or accumulate power. It needs more people who are real, more people who are awake, more people who vibrate at a frequency of truth and compassion and depth. And you are one of those people, whether you know it or not, whether anyone ever acknowledges it or not. You're one of those people. And so the habits that reveal a high inner vibration are not flashy. They are not impressive in the conventional sense. They are quiet. They are subtle. They are the kind of things that only you might notice. The way you pause before responding. The way you choose solitude over noise. The way you honor your need for depth. The way you stay present with your own pain and the pain of others. The way you trust your intuition. The way you make space for beauty. The way you practice gratitude. The way you accept your own unfinishedness. The way you treat your body with respect. The way you allow the darkness. The way you show up again and again as yourself. These are the habits. These are the practices. These are the ways of being that signal a life lived from the inside out. A life rooted in something deeper than ego, something truer than performance, something more real than any mask. And if you recognize yourself in these words, if something in you relaxes as you read them, if you feel a quiet sense of relief, of being seen, of being understood, then know this: you are not broken. You're not too much. You are not too sensitive, too deep, too intense, too quiet, too different. You are exactly as you should be. You are living at a frequency that not everyone can hear, and that is okay. You do not need everyone to understand you. You do not need everyone to like you. You do not need to fit in. You need to be yourself, fully, deeply, unapologetically, because that is where your power is. That is where your gift is. That is where your high inner vibration lives. And the world needs it. The world needs you. Not the version of you that tries to be like everyone else, but the real you. The one who knows how to be still. The one who knows how to listen. The one who knows how to feel. The one who is not afraid of depth. The one who is willing to do the inner work, even when it is hard, even when no one is watching, even when there is no applause. That is the you the world needs. That is the you that matters. And that is the you that you are becoming, moment by moment, choice by choice, breath by breath.